Welcome to SORMAG's Writers Cafe, where we share the real writer's life over a cup of friendship, sprinkled with laughter and wisdom. My name is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I'm your host. This episode's sponsor is the Social Butterfly Promotion Membership. Did your PayPal bling every day with your book sales for 2020? Or did you only receive Starbucks royalty checks? Enough to buy a cup of coffee? If you answer Starbucks royalties, I'm talking to you today. 2021 can be the year you meet your book sales goals. Join the Social Butterfly Promotion Membership today, and you will learn how to create a promotion plan, find your audience, and learn how to become a social butterfly that soars on these social media streets. Check the show notes for the link to join the Social Butterfly Promotion Membership. Today at the cafe with me is Alani Adkins, Gracie McKeever, and Lisa Washington. Welcome, ladies.
Hi,
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll start with Miss Atkins. You want to tell us a little bit about you and your writing?
Yes. So my name is Alani Adkins. I'm the owner of Kingdom Strategies LLC, where we equip entrepreneurs, businesses, and ministries with faith-based strategies to streamline systems, enhance productivity, and increase profits. I also am recently an author. I've written 2 books, one in 2019 and my most recent one in 2020. They're usually focused around Christian living and inspiration. And so my book that I'll be sharing today is called Soul Work, Journey to Inner Healing. And to best describe it, I'll just read an excerpt from the introduction. So it says, every believer is entitled to inner healing whenever they need it. Inner healing is soul work and should be done regularly. Healing the wounds of your soul is vital to living in the fullness of life that God promised us. God wants us to live a blessed life. We have to play an active part to ensure that we obtain that life. God wants us to operate in our power and authority. He has given us the power to heal. That healing power extends to ourselves. I went through inner healing, just me and God. I didn't have anyone else to guide me through that process. I kept praying until I felt a shift and allowed God to do the work. Inner healing is a process that is not limited to taking place only on a Sunday morning in a church or at a conference. Inner healing is accessible to anyone at any time. This book is a practical guide to inner healing. One of the most important steps to inner healing is discovering the root or cause of that inner wound. Something happened that wounded your soul. Oftentimes, it's difficult to recall that exact thing that hurt us due to the fact that it happened so long ago or that we were young. Other times, it's because we haven't explored the true impact of what we've had to push through a regular basis. What we do often recognize are our surface feelings. We know if we are tired or if something in that moment has upset us. Usually, though, those surface emotions are rooted in something deeper. Each section of this book starts with a surface feeling, a feeling you can easily recognize that you're feeling. As the chapter proceeds, questions are posed to help you narrow down the possible root of the surface emotion. Once the root is discovered, the lies of the enemy are presented. Inner healing requires coming out of agreement with the lies of the enemy has told us. All the lies of the enemy has us believe can be summed up into 3. We are helpless, we are unworthy, and we are unlovable. He plays on our insecurities. Each lie he tells us does have an element of truth, which is why they have such a large effect on us. We have to be vigilant enough to decipher the truth from the lies. We make this judgment based off what the word states. This is the foundation of our grounding thoughts. Grounding thoughts help us come back to the truth when our heads are filled with lies. We come out of agreement with the enemy by accepting the promises of God's word. Each lie is combated with the scripture, with what Scripture states. We are not helpless because God is our help. We are worthy, and we are loved because Jesus gave his life for us. And so that was basically a brief excerpt from the book, Soul Work.
Thank you. Ms. McKeever, are you ready?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for having me, LaShaunda. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about me and my books. I write. Gracie McKeever. I also write under the pseudonym Gigi Moore. I write in several subgenres under the erotic romance and romance umbrella, including BDSM, menage, paranormal, and shapeshifters and other supernatural beings. So far, I have 29 novels and novellas, including single titles and 6 series published. I have an affinity for life and life after death and reincarnation themes, I guess because I like to believe that there's something more for us even after our life on earth is done. Family dynamics or family dysfunction is also a running theme with many of my protagonists coming from broken homes, having tragic pasts, or the other spectrum coming from big loving families. I'm working on 3 novels currently, 2 from my Play On series and 1 from my Elk Creek series. And also lately I've been trying my hand at short work, horror and dark fantasy, and have geared some of those stories towards anthologies that I'm trying to get into, so wish me luck. The book I'm talking about today, or that I'm going to read from, is New Life Incognita. It's actually the first book I published. It's a new age urban paranormal romance featuring a young black male Wiccan who is reincarnated into a married white female's body. And this excerpt is from the first chapter. Something was sitting on his chest like a nightmare, sitting and watching. He'd had the sensations in the past, had smelled the musty smells, heard the shuffling sounds of evil spirits, experienced suffocation and the levitation. Another time in another hospital where he'd been recuperating after having been struck down by a car. 2 broken legs, months in casts that had seemed like 1,000-pound weights weighing down his skinny 7-year-old limbs. One morning he awoke and found himself in his cast stretched across a chair on the opposite side of the room. When a nurse had come in to check on him a little later and had demanded to know how in the world he'd gotten out of his bed by himself, he'd answered with the truth. I floated. He'd later repeated this tale to several visiting well-wishers and relatives, only to be met with chastising stares from the adults and teasing jeers and cuffs upside the head from his older brothers. And from then on, he vowed never again to share any information concerning weird goings-on with or around his person. He decided it was better to hold his cards close to his chest rather than be ridiculed about gifts over which he had no control and for which he hadn't asked. Kelly woke now, sputtering like a drowning man, breaking the surface one last time before his final submersion. He jerked his eyes open, saw the white-clad man standing at the foot of his bed, glancing over a chart, humming. He turned his head a little to the left, then back to the right to take in his locale. The sight and feel of sterile partitions and crisp, sanitized sheets greeted him. Half the room was surrounded by wired glass, the other half by institutional green walls. A hospital room, not heaven. And if this was so, he assumed the man in the clipboard was a nurse or a doctor, an angel of mercy, not an angel, period. True that. He was back on earth. He was home. Ah, you're awake. The doctor had hooked the clipper to the foot of his bed, was now standing at his side, reaching for a wrist. You had us worried. We thought you decided to check out without paying your bill. Kelly's lips curved up automatically, a white boy with a warped sense of humor, just what he needed. He cleared his throat to speak, but his tongue felt alien in his mouth. Don't try to talk just yet. Kelly lay still and endured the exam. It was quick but thorough. Pulse, blood pressure, heartbeat, pen light in his eyes, circling his pupils. Deep breath. Breathe. Breathe. The doctor lowered his stethoscope from his ears to rest around his neck and proffered a hand. I'm Dr. Gibson. You've been unconscious for quite a while. Kelly shook his head, tried to sit up, but the doctor gently stayed him with a palm, caressed his shoulder as he gave him a tender look, made Kelly uncomfortable to the 10th power. Not so fast. You've got plenty of time to catch up, honey. Where? Kelly cleared his throat, tried again. You're in New York downtown. No. Where is Amir Reynolds here? Amir Reynolds? No. Can't say that she. No, there's definitely no Amir Reynolds. What about my mom? Dr. Gibson nodded and smiled. Your husband and your parents are here. Been here for a couple of weeks off and on, waiting for you to come out of your coma. Husband? Parents? Coma? Yo, hold up. There's some mistake. No mistake, honey. Kelly wished the Sophie MF would stop calling him honey. He didn't know whether to be insulted or honored. He guessed it was better than boy or sonny or worst of all, nigger. But on top of the condescending tone, the guy kept staring at him with these big cow eyes like he was looking at one of them anorexic supermodel bees homeboys craved to bone. It was seriously giving Kelly the creeps, because, he wasn't living like that. He wasn't playing no Jungle Fever, and he definitely wasn't swinging with no dude. Something was wrong, definitely different, and something was definitely missing. Can I have a mirror? Dr. Gibson raised an eyebrow at the sudden request, but went to a bedside drawer and withdrew a white handheld mirror. Want to make sure the hairs are in place before your audience. I understand. He winked as he handed Kelly the mirror and smiled. Ha ha, very funny, Kelly thought. Friggin' weird-ass sense of humor, considering Kelly had almost no hit. He took one look at his reflection in the mirror and goggled. What the This wasn't happening. They made a mistake. Somebody had made a big mistake. Are you all right? No. You're not going to pass out on us again, are you? Dr. Gibson placed a palm on his shoulder and gently squeezed. Kelly shook his head, but it wasn't his head anymore. Nothing was his anymore. Nothing was him. He was gone. Mrs. Diaz? Come on now. Don't leave us again. He vaguely heard the mirror when it crashed to the floor, and Dr. Gibson as he called for a nurse and an orderly. There is a hell, Kelly thought right before he passed out, and he was in it.
Now that's what you call a first chapter. Oh my goodness!
Hope it wasn't too long.
I was listening to you and I'm going, I could have sworn she said it was a him first, right?
Yeah.
And I'm stopping, I'm listening, I'm like, woo, he didn't turn into a her.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. I know I'm gonna have to go look for that one. All right, Ms. Washington, are you ready?
I am ready. Hello. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Lisa Washington. I write contemporary Christian fiction and Christian romance. I started writing, so to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been really big and huge on education and leadership and youth leadership, and I really wanted to get a PhD in leadership. And so about halfway through my PhD program, I got a really bad migraine that lasted about 24 consecutive days. And I figured if I was going to write 75-page papers, I probably should write something I enjoy. And so that 24-day migraine put me out of the PhD program, but landed me into a creative writing program. And before that, I never, ever felt like I was good enough to write anything, that my writing was good. But that MFA program, Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, really pushed me to finish a project, pushed me to write. And so I ended up graduating and publishing my first novel, which was also my master's thesis. I write Christian fiction and Christian romance because of the youth, the kids that I usually work with in my church, always saying to me, I'm never going to use this. I don't use this. I don't know why I have to do this. I'm too young to read the Bible. I'm too young to study this. My mama made me come to church. And it came from a place where I wanted to show them how in everything you do, you can be a faithful Christian and you can read your Bible and it can apply to you even if you're 12, 15, 17 years old. So I started out writing stage plays for church and then community stage plays, and then that led into the books and to the novels and things. So I felt as though the gift was given to me by God, so I should just stick with him. He has not failed me yet, and I'm going to keep writing Christian fiction and Christian romance books. And so the book that I am going to talk about and read from tonight is Love Lifted Me, which is the third book of my faith series. This book is also the 2020 first place winner of the Author Elite Award. And I'm going to start from chapter 1, just from the very beginning, because this is, even when I wrote this, I was like, oh, that sounded really good to me. So I'm hoping it sounds good to everybody else too. But from the beginning. Angel, keep your eyes open. The informant said we know him when we see him. Copy that, Civic. Darkness filled the room and smoke seeped from the vents. Someone was trying to make visibility near impossible. Nehemiah switched to his night vision goggles. He was perched just inside of the furnace room in the back of the hotel's ballroom. He counted 22 hostages and 4 shooters. The smoke was making it difficult for Nehemiah to keep his eyes on the target. Angel, come in. Go, Civic. We have a friendly to your 9 o'clock.
Nehemiah heard her voice before all hell broke loose and shots rang out. Nehemiah sat up straight in bed, drenched in a full sweat. Like every other night, the terrors woke him up at the same moment in the dream. He relived that tragic event night after night. Why him? Why her? He always questioned himself. Nothing could change the past, but the dreams continued to come. Like clockwork, he went into the kitchen of his one-bedroom apartment in Portsmouth, Virginia, and grabbed a beer from the refrigerator. He sat in front of his television, but never turned it on. Nehemiah wanted to close his eyes, but every time he did, he saw her face, her eyes, and her blood. Draining the contents of the bottle, he went back into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. Face to palms, he sat there for a few minutes, feeling weary. "Come back to bed. It's cold under these sheets," a soft feminine voice said. Nehemiah needed to stop all of this philandering he was doing. His actions went against every principle and every value he was raised with. "I'll be right there," he responded. What was her name? He couldn't remember her name or where he met her. Yet it was time to make some lifestyle changes. 2 years later. "Where are you headed to for your leave?" Master Chief Petty Officer McIntyre asked. Peter McIntyre, also known as Mac, or by his code name Civic, was the commanding officer of their military unit, a naval unit covertly assembled to see things and not be seen. Unlike the Navy SEALs or Army Rangers, their unit had no name, and no one outside of the commander of naval operations and the director of defense intelligence knew they existed. "Master Chief, I'm headed to San Juan for some relaxation. What about you? Any big plans?" Nehemiah asked. "Nah, just spending quality time with Riallo." Riallo was his German Shepherd and best friend. Mac rescued the dog from a frigid pond in northern Michigan one winter, and the two have been inseparable ever since. Nehemiah often wondered if the reason the Master Chief wasn't married was due to his job or his insane love affair with his dog. Later that day, Nehemiah was in his sparsely filled apartment packing the last of his gear and heading for the airport. He kept an apartment in Portsmouth as a landing pad, only using it when he was in Virginia for work or visiting with his parents. There was no need to have anything other than a bed and a television in his apartment, since he never invited people over, except for the occasional woman to entertain. He was looking forward to 2 weeks of beach and drinks. This vacation was what he needed. The stress of his life was beginning to take a toll on him. His last assignment had him reevaluating the important things in life. Nehemiah knew being in the military was temporary. In fact, he had recently been contemplating retirement. Aside from being a career military man like his father, Nehemiah also had investments in his brother's recording studio, and he had started a security firm with offices in Northern Virginia and Florida. The security firm was his next great challenge. He hired only ex-military and law enforcement personnel, men and women he knew that he could handle themselves under intense pressure. Their backgrounds had to be clean and perfect before Nehemiah would invite an applicant for an interview. Jake Lewis ran the day-to-day operations of Divine Security and Protection Services. They met at Great Lakes recruit training and have been close friends ever since. Jake stayed enlisted for 12 years before he was medically discharged due to a leg injury that he suffered. He liked to tell people it was a combat mission, but he was accidentally hit with a metal pipe during some routine maintenance. After only being in business for a year, they had a decent clientele list thanks to Nehemiah's youngest brother, Elijah, also known as Mega Pop Star Evolution. He had introduced them to many entertainers and athletes who were always in need of bodyguards or extra security for one reason or another. Nehemiah and Jake also dabbled in investigations. Though not the bulk of their business, they were intrigued by the adrenaline rush they would get after solving a mystery, even if the mystery was spying on cheating spouses. Nehemiah scheduled a flight layover in Washington, D.C. to check on things in the office before he continued to Puerto Rico. He flew into Ronald Reagan National Airport and caught a cab to his small office near the Fashion Center in Pentagon City. The office was quiet for a weekday. He expected to see Jake, or at least his administrative assistant. The door was unlocked, so someone must have been inside. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Nehemiah yelled. He heard bumping coming from the utility room in the rear of the office. "Come out now, armed, and I won't ask again." This time he yelled with a deadly chill to his voice. "Man, you're not armed," Jake said, coming out of the room, zipping up his pants. "I know better than that." Before Nehemiah could question Jake, his assistant exited the room, adjusting her clothing. She didn't bother to look ashamed. She quietly walked past them and gave Jake a naughty look. "You couldn't call before you stopped by?" Jake walked into his office with Nehemiah following behind him. I don't need to call. Remember, I own half this business, he said, taking a seat in front of Jake's desk while Jake went into the attached bathroom to freshen up. Besides, the door was unlocked. What if I were a client or potential client and walked in here to find you and the receptionist in the closet? I just want to stop right there because I can't read on because this will go on and on. But that's just the beginning of this chapter.
Into it. Like, okay, what's going to happen next?
Were you in the military?
Yes. Yeah, so I tend to write things in things that I know very well. So yes, I am a Navy veteran, and I used to live in Virginia, and so there are a lot of things in all of my books that will come back to me.
Okay, because I'm ex-Navy, so I was like, it's about the Master Chief. Most people don't talk about the Master Chief. They always talk about the officers. So I was like, oh, that's all right. Most times they don't talk about the enlisted people when they do stories. It's always talking about, I'm like the enlisted.
Right.
Somebody told me, yeah, you need to write some stories. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, enlisted people like love too, So that's cool. Good to hear that. So, ladies, how are you reaching new readers right now?
This is Gracie. I'll go first if nobody. Well, actually, this podcast will probably help in reaching new readers. Any opportunity I can get to, bring in new readers or to get a wider audience, I try to take. Like I said earlier, I've been writing more short stories. I have a few novels on the back burner that have been on since 2020, but I have been writing a lot more the past couple of months. I've been looking at anthologies for horror and dark fantasy, and have kind of been geared my writing towards that. And I've just been doing challenges, weekly challenges where I write 1,000-word flash fiction and posting on blogs and stuff like that. But if I do get into an anthology, that will be a different type of reader because I haven't written any horror or dark fantasy to say where I've been published. Everything's been romance. It'll have paranormal elements in it, but nothing dark fantasy or horror. So that's how I've been trying to reach new readers with the short stuff that I've been writing this year.
For me, I've been really utilizing social media and collaborating with other groups. So I was recently in a pop-up. It was a marketplace pop-up where it focused on Black entrepreneurs. So if you had a business or if you were an author, it was a week-long thing on the last week in February. And one of the days was dedicated just to authors sharing, their books. Doing different virtual book tours has been helpful, and finding different ways to collab with other speakers on their platforms to kind of expand my audience.
I think for me, trying to reach more readers and trying to reach new readers has always been an interesting balance and a balance and struggle for me because I am not the type of person who enjoys getting out and talking or talking to people. I am challenging myself and have been that every place I go when I meet people or even see people that I'm asking, hey, are you a reader? What do you read? What types of things? And even if it's not my genre, I recommend other people that I know who write. But if it is, I'm always have business cards in hand. Every restaurant I'm in, every place I go with anybody, with my mother, just whenever I'm around people, I'm always like, hey, so are you a reader? Do you read these types of books? Who's your favorite author? And I chat up people that way and try to get my card in their hand to try to get new readers.
I'm glad to hear you say you give out cards. Sometimes somebody told me that was obsolete. I was like, I don't think so.
No.
Bookmarks and cards it's still old school people who like those. So, you know. How do you guys stay focused to write during this time? Have you been having issues writing? Are you back on track? I think Gracie was saying she's back on track.
Yeah, I'm back on track with the short stuff. I'm still trying to push myself to get back into novels, though. Yeah, I mean, to me, any writing that I'm doing is good because I hadn't been writing for a while. So just to keep the creative juices flowing and to get something down on paper is, better than nothing. But the other, I have 3 works in progress that I really, I like you were saying earlier, that was my goal for this year. I wanted to finish at least 1 to submit, but I really wanted to finish 3 since they're all halfway done. I'd like to finish at least 1 this year.
For me, I have a very pushy and bossy husband who, if he doesn't see me doing something book, publishing, marketing related, he'll ask questions. I'm very easily distracted, and so I have to leave home, and I go sit at Panera Bread. And I sit in my little corner, and I have a whole little setup with my laptop and everything, and I'll sit there for 8 hours until I bang out something. But that's only once or twice a week that I'm consistent with writing. Other than that, I just kind of get in there and do what I can. I am working on 2 projects right now as well, but one of them is in my Google Doc. So if I get bored somewhere, I have my cell phone, and I could type out a couple of paragraphs to try to do some of that. But I'm easily distracted. I'm a goldfish.
My book.
Sorry, go ahead.
My books have both been, I've only written 2 books, or published 2 books, and both of them were very much God-inspired. So when God gave me the idea for the book, that's when I started writing. To stay, motivated and to continue writing and finishing the projects, it was really a matter of, creating a system. So, okay, I know I have this many chapters I want to do, or this is how the flow of each one will go. And so once I had that system kind of in place, it was kind of easy for me to then kind of crank out the books, because it wasn't just a never-ending, task or anything like that. It was very much, okay, this is where we end. And so once I had that system in place, it was kind of easier to me kind of follow that plan.
All right. What's the most interesting change in your life as a result of being a published author?
Oh, this is Lisa. Listen, my friends, family, but people who have purchased the books from friends and family will be like, what's next? What's next? I'm like, can y'all calm down? Hold on. It's a whole process going to writing a book. It don't just happen overnight. And so that has been the biggest change. I'll get people who got the book from a friend, got it from somebody else that I don't know, who will reach out to me. I'm very open, too. So people will message me or call me, so when's the next one coming out? And I'm like, again, I just told you, I only write on Saturdays and Sundays. Y'all going to be waiting a minute.
I don't know if I've had any big changes. I've been writing so long, it just seems like I've been writing forever. I've been writing since I was 7, so not that I was published then, but I don't know. Well, people like friends or coworkers, they will Gracie writes, but everybody expects me to be, like a bestseller. It's like, you write, you must be rich. It's like, no, I have to keep a day job for the time being. I do have a lot of books published, but that's the downside to being e-published. Many of my books are only available electronically, and, people look at you like, you don't have real books? Like they don't consider it real books sometimes.
For me, since my books are all kind of, Christian living type books, I think what has changed the most for me is that I've kind of been seen as okay, you're someone I can kind of go to if I want to have, or talk about, God, or have questions about, the faith or anything like that. And so, like, I've had more conversations and deeper conversations, even with, like, my own friends or, like, friends of friends or people I've encountered who, once I tell them about the book, like, even if they haven't actually read it or heard of anything, that kind of, like, opens the door or opens a conversation to talk more about, Christianity. And so I think that has been the biggest change. Like, even the last time I got my hair done, I mentioned, I wrote a book or whatever, and we ended up the entire time just talking about God. And so that's been really cool.
Okay. What are 3 things you wish you'd known before you reach where you are now?
Okay, I'll go. All right. 3 things I wish I had known. The first, I wish I had known that I had this gift. Like I wish I had known that I truly had the gift to write a lot earlier. I could have started this writing journey 30 years ago, and I would be in a better place. The second thing I wish I had known was just the amount of time that I would need to put into a piece of work, a novel, because I still struggle a lot with self-doubt and a lot with this is not good enough, that I spend a lot of time going over and over and over chapters and scenes and rewriting when there's nothing wrong with it to begin with. And the third thing that I wish I had known definitely is about marketing. I'm still learning. I am still digging into things and learning more and attending conferences and summits and talking to people and learning things, and just wish I had known how much that I needed to put into marketing from the beginning.
Those are some good ones.
Yeah, they are. You stole my answers. But like you said, marketing is very important, and that's definitely something I wish I had known more about when I started. I'm still learning too, actually, because you really have to push yourself every day. Like you said before, especially if you're somebody who doesn't like to push yourself out there or put yourself into situations, it's kind of hard to bring it up. But you have to market yourself. And also just the whole process of knowing how involved it is to get published. It's not just, I was looking at a post the other day, someone said, I figured I'd write a book and try to get it published. And I think she skipped over so many steps. I'm like, you're putting the horse before the cart. You want to get it edited. You want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. You want to be as professional as possible. But I saw myself in her, because it's like you get something written, and the first thing you want to do is like push it out there, and you have to be patient. It's a marathon. It's not just a sprint. It takes patience, time. And that's something I wish I had, earlier.
Mine are pretty similar. For me, I got my master's, and originally I was a thesis major, and what stopped me and I had to drop it was because I couldn't finish the lit review. And so I just had this thought in my head that, you're not a writer. This is just not your thing. And so then to write, a couple of years later, a couple of books, it's like, oh, no, wait, you actually were a writer. It was just the subject matter that was what was the issue. And so just, I wish I'd known earlier that, Alani, you are actually a writer. Another thing is just that, similar to the marketing part, just, writing the book doesn't guarantee sales. Like, just because I wrote this book doesn't mean people are going to buy it. That it takes a lot more work to, like, advertise and to really push the book and, get the exposure that you really want. And then also just that self-publishing was a lot easier than I originally thought. My first book, I had a publisher, and then the second one I self-published. And I enjoyed the experience of self-publishing way more than I did with my first book. And, like, if I had known that, like, it wasn't as hard, I thought it was, like, a really hard and complicated process. But it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So I wish I had known that, sooner.
Yeah, back in the day, it seemed like it was really hard. It's a little more easier now. When I started 20-some years ago, somebody told us to publish our first book, and I was like, that's just too much money to be putting out, and no, I want somebody else to pay for all that. And then when it was time for me to publish, I was like, okay. I think as a perfectionist and a control freak, that's what I like about self-publishing. I have the final say. So, I want to talk to Lisa about how do you get past the doubt, because I be on there all the time.
I'm not past it. I have a big struggle with just constantly having to tell myself over and over again, I am good enough. I did graduate with a degree in writing, so if something works, I do have published works. I do have good reviews, so something is going right. But I have to constantly tell myself that just to get through, because I still doubt. And part of the reason why I stopped reading just now is because I was starting to doubt what was coming out of my mouth. I was like, this doesn't sound good anymore. Let me stop now. And it's a daily struggle.
Yeah, I see. And how many books do you have published, Lisa?
Right now, I am getting ready to release number 6.
Okay, all right. I'm glad that you admitted that, because I think that as writers, we don't say the fears that we have. So some people who are aspiring to be a writer think that it's so easy. Oh yeah, it's so easy. They put out their first draft, and you don't tell them that you went through that draft 15 times. And they put out the first draft. They don't get the editing. They don't, because self-publishing is so easy. You can put a book up in one day if you want to. And a lot of people don't tell the whole truth. So on the podcast, I kind of try to bring it out of that show the real world of writing. That we sitting in the corner, we scared to death about our next book. Yeah, it's the 7th book coming out, but we still nervous about it. It's not something that goes away with when you start publishing. And sometimes I have to remind myself that it doesn't go away. It's still there.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but I want that aspiring writer to not go through like me taking 20 years to come out of that, but to also know that there are, like you say, steps to do this. It's not, I got a book and I'm finna publish it. I hear these. I know they're trying to. I don't know. Maybe they are making them publish it at the end of the. People who write books on the weekend, write your book in a weekend's time. And I'm like, ooh, it sounds wonderful, but there's so many different other steps that you got to do. You put that book out there, you ain't got it pub, you ain't got to edit it, you just throw it out there, and I'm like, it's great to be able to write a book in a weekend's time, but you're not giving them, they're not going to put out their best. And, just because you're trying to write it really fast. And I think sometimes they do some writers a disservice when they're telling them that they can write a book in a weekend. You can write a book in a weekend, but you shouldn't say you publish it in a weekend. I'm going to put it that way. You can write it, but to publish it in a weekend without getting it professionally edited, not, even having a beta reader read over it, just putting it up on Amazon because you can, that's really not a good look for you. So are you all doing any virtual events that we know we can come to?
Yeah, this is the first one for me, actually. I don't have anything else planned at the moment.
I don't either. I'm actually kind of nervous about it. I would love to try it, but I'm scared.
What you scared about?
I don't do well. I'm only doing well right now is because you can't see me. So I don't do well.
Okay, so I gotta have an event and invite you ladies to come to, something fun, so you can get out your shyness and meet new people. virtually, because right now I think that's the way we're going to be for a while, so you got to come out of that cocoon and show your face on a camera. Put on your best makeup and hairdo and, come on out. And you'll be surprised. You'll have fun. It's fun. And the best part about it is you don't got to travel anywhere. You got to spend any money. That's how I look at it. I don't got to go I did about four events in 1 week. I'm like, this is great. I was tired. You do be tired because it's still stressful, but it was fun.
Yeah, I don't have any coming up either just yet, but that's something I'm always looking for.
Yeah. I always tell my clients, create your own tables. Nobody inviting you, invite yourself. All right, so what advice would you give somebody who is ready to give up this writing dream? Forget about it. I'm done. What advice would you offer them?
I always tell people, remember your why. Why did you want to do this in the first place? What was your purpose? And if you can remember your why, and if your why still exists, then you need to keep pushing forward.
Yep, that's what I say too. Good advice.
That's pretty much what I said to the young lady. She said she had published. She wanted to publish something. She just wrote something. I'm like, she didn't sound committed to me. And like I said, if this is your passion and you're committed, you're gonna have to put some work in. But don't give up your dream. Don't stop if this is what you really want. You just keep doing, keep at it. And if go to school or self learn. Most of my stuff is I'm self-taught. I read a lot of how-to books, a lot of reference books, and I, just went at it that way. And I edit things to death. Like you said earlier, and like I said, you have to be as professional as possible if you want to pursue this.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I guess I would just say, if you have to take a break from it, but then revisit. So, my first book that I ever wrote has yet to be published. I've rewritten that book probably 4 times now, and it's just not to the place where I want it to be. And so I put it to the side. But in the meantime, I was able to, start a new project. And so it might not be that the dream's not working out or this is not, what you wanted to do, but it might just be that might not be the right book for right now. So it might be a matter of, taking a break for a little while and trying a different topic or finding another, something else to write. But writing might still be very much, in you.
I agree with that. I started writing romance, and then 2 years ago I got into writing middle grade stories, and the stories just seemed to flow for me. I think with the romance I didn't never want to let them go, but the middle grade I'm doing pretty good with. So I think that if you're having troubles and it's not hitting the way then try a different genre and see if maybe your voice is somewhere else. Because sometimes we try to go with what's trending, what people think you should write, and that might not be. I remember I talked to a lot of authors who, when I first started, I worked with people who wrote romance, but that's not what they wanted to write. They just wrote the romance because that was the trend and that's how they could get into the market. And then once they got in there, they wanted to write women's fiction, which is a whole different ballgame, and then you built up this readership who wants these romances and you don't want to write them anymore. So, you have to, like you say, you have to know what you're passionate about. You shouldn't do something because that's the trend, because if that's not what you like, you're going to have a hard time writing more of it because that's not what you want to do. So what advice would you offer an author whose book isn't selling right now? She's having a hard time selling her books. What tips would you offer? No comment. Got quiet on me.
I would simply say don't give up. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm on book 6, and I don't have the greatest sales. I'm not going to be afraid to admit that, but I'm not giving up because, like we've been talking about, this is my passion. Whether one person reads it or 100 people read it to 1,000, I'm not going to stop. And so just don't give up.
I love that. That's
exactly. You never know when your work is going to get noticed by someone. I'm looking at the Bridgerton. Those books have been out since the 80s, I think. And this woman is blowing up now,
Again.
you just never know who's going to see your work or who's going to pick up on it. I just think, eventually your time will come if you keep at it. And like you say, if you keep doing what you're doing and you follow your passion, eventually everyone's going to they're going to catch on, your work's going to catch on. If you don't put anything out there, there's nothing there's nothing that anybody's going to see. So you just have to keep putting stuff out. And if you keep putting quality stuff out, eventually, it will. I think it hopefully will catch on.
I agree.
Yeah, I think just really kind of changing your focus, like. Just think about, okay, I'm going to sell the next book. And so, like, instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to sell or I need to sell, 10,000 copies or whatever, like, of course you're going to get discouraged then if you're not hitting those type of numbers. But, like, if you just think about, okay, one more person has my book, one more person hears this story, then that can kind of help you keep going. Because you never know, like, again, just echoing what the other ladies have already said, like, one person can really make a difference, like in like your readership and like who sees your book and what happens next with your book or your books. And so really just like changing your perspective and focus on to like, okay, one more person has my book who didn't have it before.
I always tell my clients to celebrate each book sale, because there's so many books out here for people to choose, and that person decided to choose your book. So celebrate that. I think that we get so caught up in trying to sell millions of books, and sometimes that might not be your path, But you have to decide what is success to you. If that's selling, 500 books or 10,000 books, and you also have to think about how much effort you're putting into it too. Because I know a lot of people who don't put any effort in it, and they think they're going to make lots of money. And I'm like, it just don't work that way. I wish it did. We always said that eat bonbons and write, and don't do nothing, and the books will sell. We wish that, but that's not going to happen. So if you're not putting in the effort to promote your book, then you're not going to sell any books. You're not. And if you put in a lot to promote and nothing is happening, then you might need a new audience. That might not be the audience that you're promoting to. That's not the right place to go to. So you have to watch that too. So what aspects of the writing do you love the best? What do you like about the writing?
I think for me, it's the whole world building and the building the characters. I like breathing life into the characters. I do a lot. Most of my stories are character based, or they're character driven. So it's just the whole creative process. I mean, even sometimes I even like the editing once in a while, because everybody talks about editing like it's a death knell. But I just pretty much like the whole writing process, the bloom of the idea, the first when you first get the first idea and you start, writing in excitement. But the marketing and promotion part, that that's not really the writing process, but those are the hard parts. And trying to get it out once it's done.
I just love the creating. I love the storytelling. I love to get these characters out of my head because they talk to each other. And so getting them down on paper and getting down these conversations is always fun to me. I can sit and write and type and laugh And my husband will be like, what are you laughing at? I'm laughing at what these characters just said to themselves. And it's entertaining for me to do that. So I just love the creating aspect, the creating of the characters, creating of the scenes, creating of the drama that they go through. That's fun for me.
I think there's just like this moment I've had with both of my books where, you know, initially I set out to write a specific book. This is going to be a particular way or whatever. And then as I continue to write, I see what the book actually turns into. And like in that moment where it's just like, okay, I let go a little bit, like from my strict outline and just kind of just flow with where the book is kind of headed. That's kind of like that sweet spot. It's like, oh, okay, I see where we're going with this. And it might not start off the same way because originally, like my last book was going to be like a devotional. Like that's what I set out to write. But as I continued to write, it's like, oh, this book completely changed. But like what came out of it was so much better than what would have been if I had just stuck to like that original outline. So just when that moment comes when it's just like, okay, this is what the book is really forming itself to be.
Mm-hmm. I write nonfiction and fiction, and I can understand from both point of view. You start one way and then it goes that way, and I love when the characters go, we're not doing this. This is where we going. It's like, excuse me, I'm the author here, and they're like, no, we run this. Come on over here, sit down, and let your fingers flow. So I love that part. When it does that, I'm like, yeah, let's go. So, yeah, I understand that from both points of view. That's cool. That's cool. All right, ladies, we're coming to the closing. Are all three of you all self-published? Or at least are you with a publisher?
I am self-published.
You're self-published, too? Okay.
I'm with a small publisher.
Okay. I was going to ask you guys, why did you choose to self-publish?
For me, it was what you had mentioned earlier, control of things. I don't like rejection either. I deal with it, but I don't like it. And then just to control things. I want things the way I want them, and I like them that way. And I don't like for people to, without good reason, I can take criticism, but without good reason, tell me why something doesn't work. Or a good explanation behind things. And so I just felt as though if I just self-publish it and do it myself, can't nobody tell me that it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
With my first book, I was with like a small publishing company, and it was an okay experience. It wasn't like the best. And so like when it came around for the second book, I just was like, well, why don't I just try to see what happens if I try to self-publish it? And it worked out. So if I, for the next book, probably would do the same thing as self-publish.
Yeah, it's a big challenge because you wear a lot of hats. But for me, it has been worth it, I think. I love the knowing when I do sell a book. You're sitting at home, you're feeling bad, and you go look at the number and go, yay, somebody bought a book in India. So I like that. I don't think you get that excitement when you with a publisher. I don't even think they tell you who bought a book until, maybe 6 months later, then you find out. So that's the best part about it, being able to, somebody tell me, oh, I bought your book, you'd be like, yeah, you ain't buy a book. The PayPal did not ring today. No. So, yeah. All right, ladies, can you tell us how we can get in touch with you online?
So this is Lisa, and the best way to get in touch with me is through any of the social medias on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at author Lisa Washington. I am very responsive, and so if there's anything, I'm also very helpful. So if there's any questions or things like that, feel free to reach out to me, and I love engaging, so absolutely.
Great.
This is Gracie. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. I have a website, GracieC, McKeever.com. I'm responsive also. I'd love fan mail, if I could get any. If anybody's interested and has questions, or if they like the stories, I would love to hear from them. The Twitter is at GracieCMcKeever.com, at Gracie C. McKeever. And Facebook is, I think it's facebook.com/Gracie C. McKeever, if anyone wants to reach out.
This is Alani. I'm on Facebook and on Instagram and Clubhouse at Alani Atkins, and on Clubhouse at Alani Adkins. And I have a website, www.alaniatkins.com.
All right. Thank you for sharing with us today. I hope what our guest shared today was helpful for you. I want to thank our sponsors, the Social Butterfly Promotion Membership. Check the show notes for the link to join. I want to thank you, our listeners, for taking time to listen to this podcast. I have 3 questions for you. Did you enjoy this episode? If you did, subscribe to the platform you're listening to so you don't miss an episode. Number 2, what did you think of this episode? Tell us by writing a review on the platform you're listening to, or send to onesormag@gmail.com. Number 3, did you learn something from this episode? If you did, please share the podcast with your community. Would you like to be a guest for an episode? Contact me at onesormag@gmail.com. One last question for you. Have you promoted your book or business today? If you haven't, go showcase those wings. Someone needs what you have to offer. This is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I will see you on the next.